Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Lulu, aka the Momatrician. I'm a pediatrician. I'm a mom of a young transgender adult. We live in San Antonio, Texas, in the United States of America. I am a Nigerian immigrant, first generation Nigerian immigrant. I am queer myself. I am a retired pediatrician, and these days you can find me usually agitating the governor of Texas or helping organizations support parents of queer kids. And in my past time, I also help those parents support themselves as they affirm their queer children. So today we're going to talk about my topic, which is introducing the Black transgender child as basically as a human being who matters. We're going to discuss this beautiful human being in words and in pictures. We're going to share my information on my poster. So my title slide is to the left, which is introducing the Black transgender child. And I'm going to minimize that so I can maximize my poster. So just bear with me. So there's my poster. We're going to discuss that we're just going to introduce the Black transgender child in words and pictures. So I don't know if you can see very well. Let me try to, very good. So that is my poster. So to the left, which is where this poster begins, I try to put arrows to hopefully direct you. To the left, we have the why this, why now. So at the beginning, I mentioned that I'm an immigrant to the United States. I'm actually Nigerian born. So you can imagine coming from my homeland, Africa, one of the most homophobic countries in the world is Nigeria. And also one of the most religious countries in the world is Nigeria. Nigeria has, you can arguably state there's a worship house. I'm going to choose my words very carefully. Worship house, either Abrahamic religion, Catholicism, or any kind of Christianity, Islam, and even traditional religion. You can find one literally on every street in Nigeria. I mean, it's that serious. And then again, they're so homophobic. So you kind of wonder why. So why am I talking about a Black transgender child? Like, who cares, right? Well, I do. I happen to be a mother of a Black transgender young adult and a pediatrician who in May of this year, I was at a conference with a friend of mine who was a white female, and we were sharing, white woman, and we were sharing, she's also a mother of a trans child, and we were sharing our personal stories. And she said in her practice, she sees a lot of white trans patients, a lot of indigenous and or Hispanic maybe trans patients, but she doesn't see any Black trans patients. And I was like, girl, what you talking about? Of course, you have Black transgender patients. They are hiding in plain sight. And so that kind of got me thinking, maybe I should start introducing this Black transgender child who is hiding in plain sight in most people's yards, most people's homes, most people's doctor's offices, at the store, at the mall, in church, sitting next to you, in the public transport. There is a Black transgender child. And my original quote, which says that in yellow, every Black trans adult was once a Black trans child hiding in plain sight, holds true. Most people think that, trans people, especially Black trans people, just kind of became trans as adults. No, knowing that our gender identity begins at a very, very, very young age means that these people have known that they are trans for a long time. And so that's my little introduction. Hopefully, it wasn't too long. So that is why I'm talking about this. And why now? Because in America where I live, I don't know where you live, but in America where I live, Black trans women in particular, which is my child, are hunted, Hunted, and haunted, Haunted, by the government, by the religious people, by their parents, by their peers, by the police. I mean, they won't let them live. And so that's why I'm talking about it now. First of all, because it's my child, but also because their lives matter. And so the first slide there to the left is the definition of intersectionality. So my favorite definition of intersectionality is it is a multiplicity of social identities. I know it's not very clear for you to see, but intersectionality is a multiplicity of social identities or categorizations and how they interconnect with each other to produce either privilege or oppression. That's my favorite definition of intersectionality. It's a little bit easier than the original definition by Kimberly Crenshaw. This one talks about the fact that it's the multiplicity of social identities or categorizations, the categories that the society puts us in, the little boxes that society puts us in, and how they all interconnect to produce privilege for a human being or oppression for that same human being. As you can see this little picture here, multiple human beings, and nobody is a monolith. No one can be described by one word only. We all have various facets of our lives. And so understanding intersectionality, the privileges and the disadvantages, there's this little pictograph on the right, which has intersections of racial identity on the top in green, gender in purple, I believe that is nationality in rose color, disability in yellow, and sexuality in blue, how they all interconnect to create the individual. Nobody is just one dimensional. So for me, for instance, I'm Black. I see myself first as Black, then as a woman. But when I walk in the room, you might just see me as, I don't know, a drug user or a homeless person or whatever you define Black women in your mind as. I'm also queer, but you can't see my queerness when I walk in. I'm also a disabled veteran, US veteran from the United States Air Force. You can't see that when I walk in the room, but I can see that. Right? My child actually said something to me once. She said, Mom, when I walk in the room, all they see is as a Black man. I forget the adjective that she used to describe herself in a very negative connotation. She said, when I walk in the room, all they see is a Black man who basically, has no ambition. But my child is a Stanford trained professional, right? And she sees herself as a girl. And so let's talk a little bit about navigating gender identity and self-discovery. What are the ages and stages, which is what I like to call it? So for most people who don't know that, your gender identity actually begins to develop at a very, very young age. You begin to see yourself in the gender that you see yourself. However, because children are products of their environment, they begin to also see themselves in the gender that their parents are socializing them with, their parents are raising them with. 9 times out of 10, when a baby is born, the doctor says, it's a boy and it's a girl, and the baby starts crying, right? We don't know if the baby is crying because they don't agree with the gender that's been assigned to them or whether they're crying for scientific reasons, right? As a pediatrician, I just put that little joke in there. The babies cry when they are born after we say it's a girl or it's a boy. We don't know if they're crying because I'm not a girl or I'm not a boy. We don't know. And then we start raising them and socializing them in one particular way. And then the child starts seeing themselves the way we're socializing them. But really, truly, inside, gender identity is a deep-seated internal sense of self. That's what it is. So how does the child see themselves vis-a-vis how you are telling them to see themselves, right? Most people I ask during my conversations, during my presentations, during my keynotes, I ask them, when was the last time, how did you know your gender identity? Many of them tell me, you know what? My mother just told me my gender identity. I was just socialized that way. I've never really thought about it. Well, the same thing goes with the transgender people. They don't know their gender identity until you tell them that they are a certain way. And many people that I work with do not realize that there's a difference between sexual orientation and gender identity. So let's talk about it a little bit, shall we? So gender identity is a deep-seated personal sense of self, how you see yourself, while sexual orientation is an attraction to somebody else, either physically, emotionally, or otherwise. So they are different. They're really not the same, even though they're all grouped under LGBT, Q plus. The truth is, sexual orientation is just about who you love romantically, how you love them, why you love them, whatever those reasons are. While gender identity is who you see yourself on a spectrum of either male or female, a little bit of both, neither, right? Or somewhere in between. So that is gender identity. And left to me, I would recommend that we don't classify all of them in the same in the same boats, but unfortunately, in today's world, we do. So gender assignment or gender attribution is what happens when a baby is born and the parents say it's a boy or it's a girl, and then they raise the child that way. That is completely different from the gender identity, how the child sees themselves. For my third TEDx talk is titled, Let the Children Lead, Parenting as Students. I make a case for parents to allow children to lead you towards their own gender identity. That's what you do when you meet a stranger. You teach, the stranger tells you about themselves. You learn from the stranger about who they are, right? Same thing with children. We have to allow them to tell us who they are. When we assign them a particular gender and then they tell us their true gender, we say, no, you're not. But truly, you don't know that. I can't tell you that you're not your gender identity because I don't know. Just like you can't tell me I'm not a girly girl all day because you don't know. Even by looking at me, you cannot tell. And that is gender expression, how I manifest my gender identity. Maybe the clothes I wear, maybe the way I dress up, maybe my haircut, maybe my earrings, maybe makeup, maybe the way I walk, maybe the way I talk, maybe the way I conduct myself might be in alignment with a particular societal description of the way a particular gender should be. But that doesn't mean that that's how I see myself. I might just be doing it because I want to be accepted. I want to feel included. But I may not be that person. And that brings gender incongruence, which is a new diagnosis, the DSM-5. As a physician, one of the things I do is look out for people who have gender incongruence, which means there's a mismatch between the gender that was assigned at birth and the gender that the person sees themselves. There's a gender incongruence, a mismatch. There's a disagreement there. And that manifests as gender dysphoria. They have symptoms of maybe sadness or depression or confusion at the very least, right? Maybe shame, maybe guilt even, and they might even manifest with self-harm or just, withdrawal, not wanting to speak too much, not wanting to talk too much. One of the ladies in my podcast says her child was very quiet until they came out as transgender, and now you can't stop the child from speaking. So who is the Black transgender child? Who are they? They are you and me. They are our kids. They are our neighbors. They are our classmates. They are our friends' kids. They are the kids we see in church. They are masking and hiding in plain sight. Right now, we see two children looking back at us. One of them is dressed and maybe even socialized as a girl. The other is dressed and maybe socialized as a boy with haircuts and all that. But if we ask them, how do they see themselves? They might have a different way of seeing themselves versus the way that parents are presenting them or making us see them. So one of the myths, one of the many, many myths out there about being transgender is that it's a mental illness, or maybe another misconception is that your friends are making you act this way, or it's a choice, or it's a lifestyle, or somebody sexually assaulted you and that's why you're like this. There's so many, many, many myths and misconceptions. Now, I can understand those because you don't know what you don't know. What I have a problem with is misinformation, which is defined as inadvertently giving the wrong information without knowing. I get that. So just don't say what you don't know, right? But disinformation is when you knowingly give out wrong information. I have a problem with that because if I'm not gender diverse or, any other different kind of gender, I cannot tell you what that is like, who that is like. I cannot categorically stand at a podium and tell you that men are men and women are women, basically reducing all human beings down to their genitalia. I know today as a Black woman that if you remove my vajayjay, I am still a Black woman. I am still a Black woman. I am not defined by my genitals. So the unique challenges that Black children who may or may not find themselves at that intersection of gender diverse and youth and racism or Black, let's just use that word. The biggest one is rejection, self-rejection, rejection from family and friends, rejection from their peers, rejection from people that they love, rejection from society, rejection from the church. Rejection causes so much damage. The kids struggle with seeing themselves as worthy because the people that they love the most do not think that they matter. It's a very heavy topic. It's a very dangerous thing also. Religion, oh my goodness, in the Black community, in Nigeria, where I come from, religion is so prevalent, but also so pervasive. It's got such a negative connotation. It's so rigid. You must be this way. You must be that way. Meanwhile, the Jesus who came with the religion, so to say, in the Bible was the most liberal person. He was a rebel. He was a nonconformist. That's why he was put to death. The only group of people that Jesus complained about in the Bible were the Pharisees and the Sadducees, those who went around screaming loud and shouting and claiming that they were saved. He complained about them. Plus, he wore dresses and had long hair. Okay, so, but I digress, right? The third thing is racism. In America, it's huge, it's pervasive. Everywhere you go, if you're Black, they look at you as less than, except maybe at home. And then when the folks at home also turn against you, you can see where the problem is for the Black transgender child. The impact of supportive environments is Black trans children who are thriving, who are smiling, who are happy, who feel invincible, who are super boys and super girls and super people, super little people, right? They feel empowered to raise up their hands and speak with their voices and show themselves as happy. I wanted to put happy pictures because I want people to know that Black trans kids are not sad. Once they know who they are and you support them, they multiply. They go from 1 to 2 to many, and they're happy and they're showing off their ability to just be. And so all they're asking you to do is just see them as worthy, see them as people, amplify their voices, deploy advocacy and activism, which is what I'm doing. Help the children live to become adults. Many, many transgender people, white, Black, whatever color that I speak to on my podcast, they tell me all the time that they never saw themselves even growing up to become adults. They never saw themselves past being children. When the government comes for your child, the government doesn't care about your child. They care about their own agenda. Because if they cared about kids, they would not be asking us to take away life-saving medication from these children, life-saving affirmation from these children. For some kids, they just want you to use their chosen names and pronouns and let them dress up the way they want. They don't even want medication. Being transgender is different for different people. Some don't want any transitioning. My child loves her body. So, but unfortunately, when you hear transgender and you hear gender affirming care, everybody thinks about hormones and surgery, but that's not true. And so, how do we build a sea of support? And for me, C is spelled solidarity, empathy, and allyship. How do we build a sea of support? So, I put a picture of a flag, an inclusive flag flying, and I don't know, I wanted to find a sea. I couldn't find a sea, so I put the sky that looks like the sea. So take that. Okay. And so how do we build a sea of support and solidarity, empathy, and allyship? Solidarity means let's go together. I'm right there with you. Empathy means I see your fight. Allyship means I'll fight with you and I'll fight for you when you're not there. That is how we do it. Solidarity means let's go. I'm a go right there with you. Let's do it together. Empathy means I see you, I hear you, I feel you. Allyship is let's go together. I'll fight with you or I'll fight for you. How do you do that? You start addressing systemic issues. You vote. You carry the flags. You unlearn your BS. I was the most transphobic person. Even as I was married to my ex-wife, I was transphobic in the house. And my kid said, Mom, I would have never, ever told you that I was trans because you were so transphobic. My home was so transphobic. And so once you know better, you start doing better. So now I know better and I'm helping you do better. And so one of the 8 people that I came up with as the key players to help the child thrive. The first picture up top left there is the queer person or the trans person themselves. The second picture is their parents. So there's a second. So the first P is the person. The second P is their parent. In the Black community, the third P is the pastor. Some pastors are more powerful than parents in the Black community. So I put the pastor there. And the other P is the principal at school, or vice principal, or teacher, anybody that represents the educator to the child. That should be a safe haven for the child. Unfortunately, they're making schools even impossible for kids now. Another person is the psychotherapist or the therapist or the psychologist, right? So the P is the person to the bottom left there who talks to you and listens to you, maybe the school counselor, right? So the psychotherapist or the psychologist is a P, right? And then their peers, look at their friends, they can make or break you. My child tells me all the time, Mom, I am here today because of my friends. And that is true, because I was not the most supportive person when she was trying to show me who she was. I couldn't see it. Then, of course, the physician, that's my picture of a doctor there taking somebody's vital signs, right? So the physician also begins with a P. And then the last person is by proxy, your neighbors, your aunties, your extended family, everybody in the village that it takes to raise a child. So that is my presentation. Essentially, these are some resources that I could find: Black Trans Girls and Black Trans Femmes Collective, Gender Diversity website, Trans Kids Purple Rainbow Foundation, the Okra Project, Black Trans Travel Fund, and of course, the Trevor Project. Those are some resources I could come up with. So I want to thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Hopefully it wasn't too long. My name is Dr. Lulu, aka the Momatrician. That is my email. If you have any questions, that's my website. Ally Bridge Connection is my second website that I use to help support parents at the workplace. I had a weird encounter in my family WhatsApp group a few weeks ago, and I decided that I needed to help support parents at the workplace because it's a real problem when parents cannot find support. That is my LinkedIn, that is my IG and my YouTube. Please connect with me. I also have a Facebook group, but there wasn't enough space to put everything on there. Thank you so much. If you scan that QR code, I believe it takes you to my Ally Bridge connection, or it may take you to my calendar. I'm not sure right now. And this is my gift to you for watching my presentation. That QR code will take you to a place where you could just leave me a little testimonial about how this presentation was and if it was of any value to you. So tell me things I can improve and things I can do better, things I can do more of if you like it. And then you get a free downloadable PDF of 10 things your trans child wants you to know. And so to end my presentation, I have a picture of a Black trans child in America today. This is one of the most maybe prominent Black trans children because her parents, have the money and the celebrity to kind of propel her face out there. While she may not necessarily represent all Black trans children, she's a Black trans child nonetheless. And she's an example of what's possible when parents support and affirm you. So I wanted to put her picture there and then, of course, end with my quote again. Every Black trans adult was once a Black trans child hiding in plain sight. I will take any questions in the comment section. You can email me any questions you have. You can find me on social media. You can just type me in Google, type my name in Google, and you'll pull me up and all the work that I've done. I have a brand new podcast that I forgot to put on here. It's titled Moms for Trans Kids Podcast. If you'd like to join us every Sunday live, as we stream on my YouTube channel. Otherwise, you can find it on Apple or anywhere good podcasts are streamed. So it's Moms for the number 4 Trans Kids Podcast. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. My name is Dr. Lulu, aka the Momatrician. Reach out if you have any questions. Again, thank you so much.